Ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, please be upstanding for the worship for the Deputy Mayors of Gedling. Good evening, everybody. Would you like to sit down? Just sit down, thank you. Can I say welcome to everybody? And it's very good to see you all this evening. The Mayor's chaplain, I'm afraid, is unable to attend, so I'd like to just do a couple of thoughts for the day. Just bear with me. Wishes, lies and dreams all spring from the same well, but knowing when to drink requires only a little common sense. And then I'd also like to say this was a message left by Caroline Flack. She ended her life, bless her, and she said, "In a world where you can be anything, please be kind." And at the moment, we do need kindness in the world right now. Thank you. Item 2 is apologies for absence. Can I ask the group leaders to confirm if they've got any apologies, please? Councillor Sam Smith, yeah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies of absence from Councillor John Parr.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Apologies from Mr Mayor, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Brooks, Councillor Scroggy and Councillor Truscott.
Wow, okay, thank you. And Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Towser Hinton.
Thank you. Councillor Pat Bosworth.
Apologies from Mike Hope.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. They will be noted. Item 3 is the Mayor's announcements. But first of all, I just want to say a reminder that proposers of motions may speak for 10 minutes and all of the speeches should be limited to 5 minutes, and then it's according to what the Mayor thinks after that. Can I please ask, if you're seated at a microphone, can you remain seated when you speak so that the cameras in the chamber are able to see you? And if you would like to stand, then please use the lectern. Thank you very much. As far as the Mayor's concerned, there's no Mayor's announcements to my knowledge, and Meredith said he's very, very sorry. Councillor Lawrence he's sorry he can't attend. Item 4 is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of January, 3rd of March 22. Councillor Clark to move, please.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Payne to second.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. None against? And no abstentions. Thank you. That's carried. Item 5 is declaration of interest. So are there any declaration of interest? Councillor Boyd-Elliott.
Yeah, just after a brief conversation with Fran then, with regards the second motion, I on my register of interest, I have an estate agency, property consultancy and rental business that I do take paid employment from, so and that involves HMOs, so I will withdraw myself with advice from the motion.
Oh, right, okay then. Thank you. I don't know whether everybody heard that. So,
sorry?
No, Madam Mayor. I've had my hand up saying, could people speak directly into the microphone? I didn't hear a word of what Councillor Elliott said.
Right, Councillor Elliott, would you like to just repeat? Sorry.
Okay, yes, with regards motion 2, it's the motion regarding HMOs. I do have a financial interest. I get paid employment from estate agency and lettings agency, and we do have HMOs in that area, and city and the council, so county. So I will withdraw from the motion. Okay.
Withdraw.
With advice, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Did you all hear that? Thank you very much. Okay. Item 6 to deal with any petitions received under Standing Order 8A.
None received, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item 7 to answer questions asked by the public under Standing Order 8.
Again, none received, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item 8 to answer questions asked by members of the Council under Standing Order 9.
We have 2 questions this evening, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Elwood, would you like to ask your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. In view of the fact that the Borough Council's playing pitch strategy was last published in August 2016, when does the Council expect to review the strategy and publish a revised version of the strategy document? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, who will answer, please? Councillor Henry Wheeler, yeah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council's last playing pitch strategy was published in August 2016. Usually, if no review and subsequent update has been carried out within 3 years of it, Sport England and the relevant national governing bodies of sport would typically consider it out of date. And the information on it, which would be, it would be out of date. However, nationally, due to extenuating circumstances, the 3-year timescale for review has been extended to 5 years. This is because back in 2018-19, the Football Association, Football Foundation and Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport jointly worked together in partnership with all local authorities to develop local football facility plans. These were due to be published in late 2019. However, this didn't take place until November 2020. The refresh of our Gedling Place pitch strategy was due to take place following work on the development of the Gedling local football facility plan. Unfortunately, the deliverability of this was significantly impacted by the global COVID pandemic, both locally and nationally. Despite this, our officers have worked hard with local and national partners to deliver the main strategic aims of the 2016 playing pitch strategy. This includes 4 new artificial grass pitches, AGPs, at Redhill Leisure Centre Academy, Cartley Willows Academy, Goosedale Sports Club in Bestwood Village, and the Carlton Football Centre at Carlton Academy. Additionally, we have received Football Foundation funding to deliver a new pavilion, a natural grass pitch, NGP improvement at Lamley Lane Recreation Ground, with works due to take place later this year, plus other smaller community facility improvements across the borough. Last month, our new corporate director commenced a wide-ranging strategic review which will inform our current and future proposal requirements. This will primarily via an overarching strategic outcomes planning model, which will tell us why, where, what, how and for whom the council will aim to transform its local play, sports, physical activity, wellbeing and community facilities and services sustainably for our residents and communities as part of this wide-ranging strategic review. A new playing pitch strategy will also be commissioned alongside other strategies being developed and refreshed. The existence of robust and up-to-date strategies will bring significant benefits to our local communities, such as enhancing and maintaining relationships between parties within an interest or provision within these facilities, ensuring the best use of available resources to develop and deliver the strategies, develop a locally specific and tailored approach, understanding supply of demand for these facilities within the borough, assess and understanding whether there is enough provision to meet both the current and future demand, highlight the key findings and issues within the provision of the main and ancillary facilities, develop a strong set of recommendations and detailed action plan that a range of parties are committed to delivering, coordinating current and future resources and investment in facility provision to secure the maximum benefit to sport, which is considered to be a value for money, and ensuring the strategies are kept robust and up to date. The current timescale for this strategic review are for this to be completed towards the end of 2022 and adopted and published in spring 2023. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wheeler. Did everybody hear that? Happy with that? And Councillor Elwood, would you like to ask any supplementary question?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's answers my question perfectly. Lovely.
Thank you very much. Right, thank you. Councillor Elliott, would you like to ask your question? You've got one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the portfolio holder for Waste and Environment provide an update on the Council's progress of U-turning on its smaller household waste bin size policy? Thank you.
Much. Councillor Payne, you're going to answer this, aren't you?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much to Councillor Elliott for his question. Madam Deputy Mayor, as we all know, my colleagues across the Chamber, which includes Councillor Elliott, ran a by-election campaign in Cavendish based on an untruth about bin sizes. For the benefit of the Chamber and for the benefit of the residents watching this meeting who live here in Gedling Borough, let me set out the facts in the meeting tonight. Gedling Borough Council, as the Waste Collection Authority, undertakes domestic waste collection across the borough. The recycling, reprocessing, treatment and disposal of waste from the 7 district and borough councils in Nottinghamshire is managed by Nottinghamshire County Council as the Waste Disposal Authority. Neither council, Gedling Borough or Nottinghamshire County, can control where waste comes from or significantly influence the manufacturing process that creates it. There is a long-term waste disposal contract between Nottinghamshire County Council and Veolia that stipulates exactly what materials can and cannot be recycled. It is widely acknowledged that this restricts the amount of household waste that can be recycled, and it is incredibly confusing for our residents. And I've certainly heard councillors within this chamber who have been confused by what can and cannot be recycled. The council, Gedling Borough Council that is, approved its draft waste and recycling policy for consultation at its cabinet meeting held on the 27th of January 2022. This included a proposal to offer large 240-litre bins as standard, I repeat, standard, to all households consisting of 1 to 5 residents, and further capacity offered for larger households. The public consultation took place between the 4th of February 2022 and the 4th of March 2022, for which we, the Council, received 33 responses. The detail of the consultation responses and final policy were due to be brought to Cabinet on the 21st of April 2022. However, this was not possible as that is within the pre-election period for the Gedling Ward by-election, so will be brought to the next available Cabinet meeting. This policy will operate within the current legal framework and includes the Nottinghamshire Principles for the Reduction of Contamination agreed by all, I repeat, all district and borough councils and Nottinghamshire County Council, run by the self-same party as the person asking the question tonight. The policy, Madam Deputy Mayor, provides the framework for 1. A proportionate and considered approach to waste collection across Gedling Borough, and indeed any borough. 2. Clarity and communication for residents to support Gedling Borough Council's recycling targets. I'm sure something everybody in this chamber, irrespective of their party or none, could agree with. 3. Reduction in black bin residual waste. Not only good for the taxpayer in terms of cost, but also for the precious planet that we are all fortunate to inhabit. 4, increase in recycling rates. 5, a reduction in contamination of waste streams. 6, clarity of measures that will be taken for those who continually contaminate or do not comply with the policy, which I think are few and far between, but where there are people who do not comply, they need to be dealt with appropriately, because they are putting a burden on the wider surface for the vast majority of law-abiding and rule-following citizens in our borough. And finally, minimisation of the carbon impact of the waste service, including fleet mileage and route optimisation. let me be absolutely clear, Madam Deputy Mayor, this is no U-turn. I repeat, this is no U-turn. This is a question, and let's call it out for what it is, put forward by the opposition, and actually let me just be generous to other people in this chamber and spell it out more directly, the opposition Conservative councillors, to cover up for the fact that they simply, aided and abetted by their Member of Parliament, got it wrong in the Cavendish by-election, and in doing so, tried to frighten and scaremonger residents. Thank the Lord that the decent and reasonable people in Cavendish saw right through the disingenuous claims that were put out door to door by that party opposite. And let me just also say this, Madam Deputy Mayor, for the record. The Conservative members, where the question has come from tonight, sitting on the overview and scrutiny group, simply could not be bothered to join the waste working group, where they could have influenced policy. Instead, Madam Mayor, they created a story of untruths and are now too embarrassed to admit it, taking a lead from their Prime Minister and the leader of their own party. So I thank you, Councillor Elliott, for bringing your question tonight, because it's given me the opportunity to set out the clear truth to the great residents of Gedling Borough, who deserve a lot more than the mistruths, the deceit and the scaremongering over a universal service that took place by your party in the Cavendish by-election, and that you are clearly still hell-bent on pursuing, despite the fact that everything you said was factually incorrect and wrong. The residents deserve better, and you should know better.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Point of order. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The answers to those two questions have been interrupted by constant chirruping from that corner of the chamber. It's incredibly disrespectful to the chamber, and also what it shows is that corner doesn't want to listen to the answers that are given, even to the questions that they've posed. What it shows is that they are using questions to score petty political points and not to get genuine responses.
Thank you very much. Point of order, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Boyd-Elliott, I think you would like to ask a supplementary question, won't you?
Yep.
Because I've seen, I thought you would.
I would love to, thank you. I'd like to know what the point of order was as well. But, okay. Thank you, Councillor Payne, for your response. It was, yeah, great. But it is Gedling that decides the bin size. So as a result of your smaller bin policy, the Gedling Borough Council bin policy, we're not going into county here, are we? Some residents in the borough of Gedling now have a 180 litre waste bin. How does the council plan to provide those households with a 240 litre bin?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Payne.
I think, Councillor Elliott, the idea of a supplementary is that it is supplementary. It's not just a repetition of the original question that you asked, but let me just try again. The draft policy was consulted on. It set out very clearly a proposal to offer large 240 litre bins as standard to all households. I'll repeat, standard to all households consisting of 1 to 5 residents, and further capacity offered for larger households. Councillor Creamer pointed out earlier, and it gives me the opportunity to say this, that Gedling Borough has always had a policy and continues to have a policy under this Labour administration of you being able to have as many green recycling bins as you want if you recycle. And I think, as Councillor Wilkinson said, Councillor Elliott, if you could get the rest of your group to just pipe down a little bit and listen to the responses to the questions you've asked, you'll have heard me say that the consultation responses and the Cabinet report will be approved at the next appropriate Cabinet meeting, once the Gedling ward by-election is out of the way. Approved, it will be standard that 240 litre bins will be offered to all households consisting of 1 to 5 residents, and further capacity offered for larger households. I don't think that could be any clearer than I've stated. And do you know, you can sit there smirking all you like, Councillor Elliott. You've got people who sit opposite me in that contingent over there who don't only represent Gedling Borough, but also represent other councils in this county on the county council. Perhaps they should go and have a word with the Tory administrations who could do with following the lead of Gedling Borough in offering decent bin sizes, adequate access to recycling and a fantastic bin service. And let me just finish, Madam Deputy Mayor, by saying not only did it do a disservice to residents and did do a disservice to this administration, much more importantly to me in that by-election, and you should hang your heads in shame, it did a disservice to the outstanding staff who kept the show on the road in terms of our bin collection service throughout the pandemic and continue to do so. I had a number of members of staff who approached me who'd seen the literature in your by-election who were absolutely disgusted with the mistruths. It showed disrespect, it showed dishonesty, and it showed a lack of leadership and credibility which they expect from their elected members when we meet here in the chamber. And you really ought to know better. So if I could give you a bit of advice, Boyd, on this, drop the bin questions. It's really unbecoming of you. It's not getting you anywhere. It's not a smart tactic politically, and it's not clever in terms of scaring residents either. You're a lot better than that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. Item 9, to receive questions and comments from the members concerning any matter dealt with by the Executive or by a committee or subcommittee, Standing Order 11.1. There are 17 sets of minutes on this agenda. If any member would like to ask a question or make a comment about any of the minutes, would you please indicate? And can I remind you that you must refer us to the page number that you're speaking about. First of all, I'll take minutes A to I. Any comments or questions, please? No comments, questions? Right. Minutes J to R, any comments or questions, please? Nothing at all? Okay, thank you very much. Item 10, to consider comments on which due notice has been given under Standing Order 11.3 brackets A.
None received, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item 11, to consider motions under Standing Order 12. Well, 2 motions have been received. Number 1, can Councillor Adams propose the motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Formally propose the motion with the slight amendment that's being circulated as we speak. Thank you very much, Emma.
Madam Mayor, can we, after Councillor Adams has proposed the motion, can we have a 10-minute adjournment to consider the amendment?
Yes, you can. Seconder, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, vote. Right. All for the amendment, yeah? Adjournment, sorry. Beg your pardon. Sorry. Adjournment, yeah? Okay, an adjournment. Right, thank you. Councillor Adams, would you like to propose, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. Yes, incredibly happy to propose this motion tonight. One of the fantastic results of our 55% support of local Gedling residents in the exiting of the EU is the ability for our Chancellor to set our VAT, specifically in this case on solar panels. As we all know from the recent hikes in energy, the cost of wholesale energy has gone up significantly, including standing charges as well. The fantastic thing about solar panels, for those that have them, is that they effectively halve your energy usage with the battery backup. I've used them myself, I've witnessed it myself, and they're incredibly good way of being able to manage your energy use in your house. Now, one of the things that I raised fairly recently in the planning committee was around how we had a new development coming to as part of the Harbour Estate development. And within that development, there was a nice set out area that you could go and buy a house that came with renewable energy as part of it. But that wasn't actually located in the area where affordable housing, now affordable housing, as we know, is housing that's accessible to everybody of all incomes. And so the idea of that would be that the question I was asking myself is, why aren't we putting the solar panels? Why isn't the developer putting the solar panels on the roofs of people that arguably would need that assistance potentially with their energy bills? So what this motion today does is it puts in play a recommendation, an SPD, to guide our housing developers on adding solar power as a means to assist those people with those bills. We really have got to look after people in our society that are struggling to make ends meet. We've recently seen, obviously, with the £150 that's coming through the council tax to residents as a means to assist that. But I feel we could go a significant step further by putting some guidance in to our housing developers to help them, and also help our councillors when we're assessing planning applications to determine on how not just affordable they are, but also subsequently the fantastic thing about solar panels as well is it reduces our carbon impact and effectively enables energy to be actually created as the sun comes out. So I move this motion today, as I say, and I would really hope you could all support it. It's a very positive motion and one which I believe could really help residents of our fantastic borough meet the ever-changing issues of not just energy and not just climate, but also finance as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. Can we have a seconder, please? I think it's Councillor Sam Smith, isn't it?
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Mayor. I second the motion as written in the agenda pack, but just with a small amendment that's been sent round that asks the councils to support this SPD in principle and then allows the Cabinet, as per the executive system that we operate in, to make the final decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Right, we'll have an adjournment. Okay. Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment, if I may.
I want the adjournment first.
Well, we'll have the adjournment first, right? Okay.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to do that?
You're okay, yeah.
If we, I'll ask my colleague, Councillor Duncan, to hand that out then, and then we'll...
Happy with that then, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Councillor Duncan?
The right to speak.
Councillor Duncan just seconded that. I didn't quite catch it.
Right, can we just clarify that Councillor Duncan seconded the amendment? Yes, I thought so. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I've got a question on how this works, because looking at the amendment here, the amendment is to delete from Councillor Elwood is to delete the first two paragraphs, but then reinstate the third paragraph as unamended as it was from the proposers of the motion. So we need to be clear whether reinstatement of the third paragraph is actually reinstating the original or the bit that has been amended by the proposers of the motion. So I think we need some clarity on that.
Well, let everybody get one. Councillor Boyle, we haven't seen it yet, so we'll make a comment in a minute. Right, we're having the adjournment, okay. Councillor...
Before we have the adjournment, Madam Deputy Mayor,
Yeah.
If we've got two amendments, do we have to vote separately on each of them? And if one becomes substantive, does that ditch the other one? Surely you ought to be considering them totally separately. And in which order should we consider them, the First Amendment or the Second Amendment?
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, the motion proposed is the motion that's been sent round to you with the printout, not the one in the paper. So that becomes the substantive motion, if I'm right.
Yes.
And then the amendment is from the Liberal group, if I've understood the Constitution correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct, yes.
Madam Mayor, forgive me, but that does leave us as a slight problem because the reinstatement is actually to the one that's in the original agenda pack and not the substantive, which is now the Conservative amendment to their own motion. So we need to resolve that before we can really consider the thing, which was the point I was making earlier.
Consider for 5 minutes.
Right, the monitoring officer wants to consider the motions, right, and everything, and then she'll come back. Okay? We're having the adjournment, okay? Can we not do that? She says... She's going to read it. We'll get there eventually. Right.
Just to be clear, so we all know.
Right. Are we listening? Because the amendment is a deletion of the first two paragraphs of motion 1. That's right, isn't it? As circulated by the Conservatives. Okay? Councillor Elwood, would you just please clarify to everyone?
Certainly, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, basically, it's obviously the motion has now changed. So what we were proposing was to just remove, as you said earlier, the first and the second paragraphs in their entirety, but retain the third paragraph as the motion now reads, and obviously the fourth paragraph is. Well, it was part of the third paragraph, but now it's a paragraph on its own. Man, you're not supposed to have a paragraph just as one sentence, are you? But anyway, that's by the by. Keep that in as well. So just get rid of first and second paragraphs.
Have you all got that? It's going to be
So, Madam Deputy Mayor, so what we're saying is that the amendment is to delete paragraph 1 and 2 and leave the original motion from that point unamended.
No, the amended motion.
Which is now the original.
The only motion is the one that was handed out 10 minutes ago. That's the motion. Forget what was on the agenda, because that's not there anymore.
Can I?
Go on.
I just think it's quite an unsatisfactory position that the council's been allowed into a position where motions have been printed on an order paper that were not in order, that were committing the council to do something that it has not the power to do, which is why we've ended up in a situation tonight where Councillor, forgive me, was it Councillor Adams who moved it, I think, and Councillor Smith seconded it, where Councillor Adams has had to amend his motion. Let's be clear about it. It wasn't a superficial change. He's amended his motion because of a ruling you gave as the monitoring officer that his substantive original motion was not in order. The council is not permitted to commit itself to creating an SPD. And I think it's an incredibly unsatisfactory position for elected members to find themselves in, that not only have we got a motion that's been permitted on the order paper that wasn't permittable, so we've now had an amendment moved tonight, that everybody else in this chamber, bar the two people who have moved it, have only just seen tonight. And we're being asked to take a decision about something that could potentially commit the council to resource use, which is taxpayers' money, and potentially be open to legal challenge on, is the clear advice we've got from our planning officers. And now we've got an amendment that's been permitted that actually isn't the permitted amendment. We're now told we're hanging on the verbal word of a councillor. I just think the whole situation is quite an unsatisfactory position for all elected members to find themselves in.
Thanks very much, Councillor Payne. I think Councillor Smith, you'd like to say something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify for Councillor Payne, I've been in this chamber, Councillor Payne, where you have moved something different to what is printed on the agenda. And just to clarify, I want to thank the staff in the legal department, actually, who have spent hours on the phone with me on Teams face-to-face, talking through these motions. The motion written on the paper was accepted by this council's legal department. I then got an email and a phone call the day after that was submitted to suggest what options are available, as the advice given at the time was not correct in line with what we've proposed tonight. So the printed out version is that, and we're allowed to propose that, as we did not propose what was written on the agenda pack. You've done it before, Councillor Payne. We're just doing it within the Constitution.
Thanks, Councillor Smith.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I don't want this to turn into a tete-a-tete across the chamber. Motions have never been amended from me or anybody else in this group on the floor of a meeting, and I would gladly go back through every single council meeting that just, if you hear me out, I did the courtesy of listening to Councillor Sam Smith, that were at variance with the advice given by the monitoring officer, or that were changed on the night of the meeting because the original motion was committing the council to doing something it wasn't permitted to doing. This is not a partisan argument we're having. I'm simply making the point that it's unsatisfactory that elected members find themselves, whatever party they're from, in a position where they're being asked to consider a motion that is changed on the night because the original motion they submitted, whoever's decision was made, was not valid. That's the point I'm making, and we've now got an amendment to it that we haven't got in front of us as elected members. I'm not making a partisan point, Sam. I'm making the point that it's unsatisfactory for us all as elected members to be in a position where we're being asked to make a decision that is committing our council, us collectively, resources to an issue that we've seen for the last 5 minutes. So I'm not making a point about who's right or wrong or whatever else, or pointing a finger of blame. I'm just saying it's an unsatisfactory position for us to be in. And it's a serious decision we're making, that potentially has implications for the cost for not just the council, but also for the taxpayer and for developers. Adding solar panels onto housing is potentially a cost, a burden on the people who are going to be purchasing those houses. And the point I'm making is the council shouldn't be making decisions on the hoof.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. Councillor Adams, yeah?
Just a very, very small point on this. All we're doing is we're not changing the motion, we're just changing where the decision is made. That is it. We're saying that, with respect, Councillor Payne, you still get to decide at Cabinet whether you agree with it or not, and whether you put it forward or not. So you still get to make the final decision. We're not taking any decision making away from you. In fact, quite the opposite. We're putting it into your area to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Michael, I understand. Look, we could go around the house. I understand that. My issue here isn't about who makes the decision. My issue isn't about who makes the decision. My point is the original motion was not in order. The council has not got a legal right to create an SPD, which is why the monitoring officer is now given a ruling. That's the point I'm making.
Can I try and interject? So the monitoring officer is happy that this is a valid amendment in terms of deleting the first 2 paragraphs of Councillor Adams' newly circulated one. Councillor Elwood did not know the 3rd paragraph was going to be changed today, hence why it has been reproduced here. Had he have known, the new wording would have been built into this proposal as the 3rd paragraph unchanged. So the amendment is valid, and the amendment is Councillor Adams' newly circulated motion 1 tonight with the first 2 paragraphs deleted.
Yeah. Right.
So we've got an adjournment. If we can consider that amendment and make a decision, if it is successful, then that will be voted upon. If it isn't successful, then we'll go back to the new substantive motion that was circulated by Councillor Adams earlier. So,
forgive me,
Councillor Boyle.
point of order here. Shouldn't we hear whether the proposals of the motion as circulated are going to accept that amendment or not first?
Still having an adjournment. Still having an adjournment.
Can I just check with Councillor Elwood that that is your intention, that you are deleting the first 2 paragraphs of the circulated motion circulated by Councillor Adams half an hour ago? Yes, so we can now, with your permission, Madam Chair, go to the adjournment.
Adjournment. Right, there's an adjournment now. Okay, thank you. Best of luck. 10 minutes. Right. I think we might have a little bit of clarity. I believe that Councillor Adams wishes to accept the amendment, so would Councillor Adams like to say something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to clarify, our original motion in agenda was accepted by the monitoring officer and then, what's that word? Printed. Following the publication of the papers, we had another conversation with the monitoring officer, and as a result, we are tabling this motion as printed out with a slight alteration of text. This is permitted, and we accept the amendment from Councillor Elwood to our table motion as printed on paper and handed out to you. This now becomes the substantive motion. Thank you.
Substantive. Oh,
Seconded first.
right. Seconder. Councillor Smith.
Second that, Madam Mayor, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. So now we're saying new substantive motion is just this bottom paragraph.
No, no, no.
No? What?
This one, Michael Adams possible.
That bottom paragraph. Oh, we'll get it right in a minute. This one.
Yes.
This one.
Motion 1.
Motion 1. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. I'll get it right. This one.
Yes.
So this one. As in, yeah? Are you all happy now with that?
So that becomes, that's a substantive motion. We're now open for discussion.
Would it help if I read it out, Madam Mayor? Yeah.
Go on then.
Thank you. This council supports in principle the adoption of an SPD for renewables on affordable housing, ensuring developers add solar power with batteries to all affordable properties built across the borough, resulting in those in need of affordable housing also benefiting from lower bills as soon as practicable. This measure is within the council's remit and does not require any letter being sent to government or our local members of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, would anybody like to get up and say anything? Nobody?
Councillor Elwood.
Oh, Councillor Elwood, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and thank you to the movers of the motion for accepting our amendment. That is a sign of magnanimity, which we're very grateful for. The motion as reads is an imaginative proposal to introduce solar panels into the borough. It obviously will involve a cost primarily to housing associations, but those costs can be funded through low interest rate borrowing, and that'll be a lot cheaper than for private individuals. In the infrastructure funding statement 2021, apologies, there is capital contributions retained as of that financial year for affordable housing of 1.3 million, which hasn't been spent. Now, there were obviously legal issues involved with that money, but we're looking at per roof a cost of £6,000 for a 4 kilowatts solar panel. So that is not a vast amount of money. It's understandable, though, that it could tip some planning applications over the edge with regard to affordability. We already have that on the planning committee, where affordable housing contributions aren't feasible because of the numbers just don't stack up. So that would be another factor that could be put into the mix there. But it would be surely possible to allow an exemption from any supplementary planning documents on those grounds of financial viability. So all in all, this is something that we think should be supported by the council, And as I say, I commend Councillor Adams and Smith for proposing the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elwood. Councillor Adams? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry, Councillor Barnfather, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank the Liberal Democrats for their constructive amendment. The purpose of the original motion is not lost in their amendment and not lost to us, that it isn't lost, if all that makes sense. The reason that this motion is before us today is Councillor Adams and myself and other members of this chamber sat at a planning committee meeting where we had proposals put to us for a large-scale development where solar panels were part and parcel of that application. But those solar panels were only to be installed on the most expensive properties within that development, which were for sole purchase, effectively the properties, I suppose, that the developers would make most profit on. And that's fine and well, that's commercial activity. But I think the point that Councillor Adams made at that planning committee meeting was that there was a number of affordable housing properties within that same planning application, within that same development. By the very nature, they would be occupied by people who would perhaps be less economically sound, in a less stable financial position, and more affected by certainly the recent increases in the cost of energy prices. And it seemed a bit of an anomaly that the properties which could be perhaps most afforded, the most expensive properties, that would probably be purchased by the more affluent purchasers, were the ones who were to benefit from energy-saving installations. They effectively would be benefiting far more than the properties that were going to be occupied by people who were perhaps struggling far more economically in the present climate. And I think that's the purpose behind the motion before us today. It isn't committing this council to any expenditure. It is merely asking Cabinet to explore how a supplementary planning document could try to alleviate some of those difficulties for the less well-off within society who would be occupying those affordable properties, how they would receive the maximum benefit from the installation of solar panels, effectively the least well-off in community, being supported by a supplementary planning document that is within the power of Cabinet and the Executive to approve. Now, I'm sure that when the research is done and the data is provided, the officer's report to Cabinet will say whether or not that is a viable proposition. If it isn't a viable proposition, Cabinet, quite rightly, will vote down any further action on it. They won't adopt or recommend the adoption of that SPD. All we're asking is, effectively, that that is explored, the option is explored. We look to try and benefit the less well-off in society, those who would occupy that affordable housing. My view is we should look to have solar panels on every new property in the borough, but we haven't asked for that. We've merely tried to say, if there are savings to be made, they should be for the benefit of the less well-off than the more well-off, which I'm sure nobody in this chamber could have an objection to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barnfather. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Right, Jenny. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's a shame those first two paragraphs have gone, because I think it could have been quite interesting, but never mind. I have to say that even with the amendment, we will not be accepting this motion. For me, supports in principle is actually no different to resolve to create. It's purely semantics, and the ask in the motion is exactly the same. The other issue I've got is that it's asking for solar power with batteries. Now, even if we did do an SPD, if we could, I wouldn't want it to be prescriptive to solar panels and batteries alone. That would inhibit the use of other energy-saving and carbon reduction technologies that might be more suitable in particular buildings and in particular locations. We would not want to mandate a particular technology. What we would want to do is mandate a particular outcome. Madam Deputy Mayor, the NPPF sets out national requirements for planning and climate change. Local planning authorities are required to adopt proactive strategies to adapt to and mitigate against the impacts of climate change in line with the objectives and provisions of Climate Change Act 2008. Excuse me. Members will know that the Gedling Borough Local Plan consists of the Aligned Core Strategy and Part 2, the document for Gedling Borough. The key climate change policy is ACS Policy 1, Climate Change. This policy addresses specifically a number of key design principles to maximise the resilience of development whilst also maximising opportunities to mitigate the impact of climate change. The policy ensures that any development must account for short and long-term changes resulting from climatic changes through development design, location, form, materials and construction. It applies to new development as well as refurbishment requiring planning permission. The Government's Planning Practice Guidance states that supplementary planning documents, SPDs, should build upon and provide more detailed advice or guidance on policies in an adopted plan. As they do not form part of the development plan, they cannot introduce new planning policies into the development plan. It would therefore not be permissible to introduce or agree in principle to an SPD to require all affordable properties to include solar power with batteries, as it would add significantly to the requirements of our existing policies, which have been found sound by an inspector. Measures to increase energy efficiency and reduce carbon emissions are, however, fully supported, and members will be aware that in November 2019, Gedling Borough declared a climate change emergency and made a pledge to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2030. Our adopted strategy details just how this will be done. The plan has 6 key areas where we believe we can do something to reduce emission levels. Those key areas are home building, transport, energy generation, behavioural change, waste reduction and recycling, and improving infrastructure to...
Madam Mayor, we had this last time Councillor Hollingsworth was speaking in the chamber. I don't know what it is about Councillor Elliott. Can you just show some courtesy and allow her to speak? I can hear it from over here, and it's really off-putting and incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah, but I'm just going to let Jenny carry on.
Thank you. Within the strategy, there are over 100 actions that the Council will aim to achieve over the next few years. In terms of house building, there is a specific action to work with housing developers to achieve sustainable constructions. We have already adopted the low carbon planning guidance for Borough. It applies to major development proposals defined as 10 dwellings or more, or commercial developments over 1 hectare, and includes a checklist for use by planning officers and for developers when submitting planning applications. The checklist distinguishes between what should be delivered under the current policies and those more aspirational aims that may become requirements in anticipation of the changing national and local planning policies in the future. The principles in the guidance are embraced by our planning officers, and the guidance has proved to be very effective. Only last month, Planning Committee approved plans at Chase Farm for 33 homes, which will include air source heat pumps, solar PV panels, increased levels of insulation and EV charging points, with the aim of tackling climate change and also addressing issues of energy costs. With regards to development delivering affordable properties, the Council is in receipt of a planning application to make minor amendments to 46 of the approved affordable properties on Rolleston Drive to include solar panels and air heat pumps. It should be noted that the energy efficiency of new properties is primarily controlled through building regulations, and from June, new houses will have to produce 30% less carbon emissions than homes delivered under the current standard, paving the way for future home standards which are expected to produce 75 to 8% less CO2 emissions than homes built to current requirements when introduced in 2025. So we cannot support, even in principle, an SBD which will require all affordable properties to include solar power at the current time. It would be at variance with the advice contained in the planning practice guidance and would therefore be subject to legal challenge. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hollingsworth. And I do think that we all needed to hear what Councillor Hollingsworth had got to say, because she's been very informative, so thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak? Murray.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Can I start by thanking you and the monitoring officer for the elegant and deft way you handled the dispute about the motion here. The debate about the motion put me in mind of my just 10-year-old turned 10 son, who is a big fan of Madagascar, the film. And there's a song in it in which it goes, "I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it." And when that whole debate was going on, I had visions of my colleague sitting next to me, and Councillor Payne and Councillor Tansy Hinton dancing in the front of the council chamber. But that's such a horrid sight that I think I'll just move to the substance. There was a muttering from Councillor Payne when he was debating the content of the motion that this motion would involve the potential of significant expenditure of what he called taxpayers' money, and also the prospect of legal challenge. Neither of those points were substantiated, and no doubt in his winding up we will hear in his usual emphatic style how he's going to make good those points. But there is, frankly, no merit in either of those suggestions for two reasons. The first is the vote today in this council is not determinative, because, of course, as we've already determined, the decision will be taken by Cabinet following a report from an officer. And secondly, the additional cost, any additional cost or legal challenge will be dependent on the facts of each particular scheme. And for the reasons that Councillor Barnfather's already eloquently set out, that should not feature in the thinking of councillors voting on this motion today. Councillor Hollingsworth, in her contribution a moment ago, suggested that, as she reads it, the phrase "supports in principle" in the motion which is now before the council is the same as "resolves to create." And I'm afraid I don't agree with her in that analysis. I agree with the analysis of our monitoring officer, who was spot on in her interpretation in that respect, and she remains correct. So neither of those points are good reasons for the Labour group to vote against this motion, which is self-evidently a motion which supports the green agenda which this council seeks to pursue. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Deputy Mayor. Electric is the future of our energy supply. It will help to save our planet, and all on this planet should have access to it. But, Mrs. Deputy Mayor, as we've heard from the Liberal Democrats, the £6,000 cost for a roof of solar panels is quite expensive, and not everyone can afford it. What this motion does tonight is ask councillors to support in principle a means of those in affordable homes accessing the benefit of solar panels. We've all seen our electric bills going up, and this could save our most vulnerable residents money by providing them access to solar panels on top of their affordable homes. Now, I would go on to say, for their sake and the sake of our planet, we should all vote in favour of exploring this option, but I'm sure the residents of this borough did listen to Councillor Hollingsworth and hear her words loud and clear. I just hope they remember her words next time a Labour councillor is handing out a leaflet on the cost of living. And I hope that the residents of this borough recall that her and her Labour colleagues tonight had the opportunity to vote in favour of a potential method to support our most vulnerable and least well-off residents with the electric costs. But instead, time and time again, they vote against action and they fall back to words, words, words and no action. Shame on you all.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Payne.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's pretty remarkable, isn't it, the Damascene conversion of the Conservatives tonight around the importance of renewables and solar energy. One would be forgiven for thinking that they tried to erase from history the decision that they took in government in 2016 to slash feed-in tariffs on solar panels. Let me just spell out a fact for you, Councillor Murray. Your own party in government slashed feed-in tariffs in 2016 by 65%. And do you want to know what happened to solar power as a result on affordable homes and all homes across England? The amount of energy produced by them fell by 2/3. In fact, actually, no, it didn't. It fell by 3/4. As immediately as a result of the decision that your government took. So for you to come here tonight and lecture anybody about the importance of, or be seen as a cheerleader for solar energy, I just think beggar belief. And eloquent as it was, Councillor Murray, the decision might now not be determinative in the council chamber, but it's only not determinative because it took the monitoring officer to do your homework for you. You came here tonight with a motion that was not in order, that was not legal for the council to commit to. And it took the intelligence, the insight and the foresight of our monitoring officer to get your colleagues to the right of you, Councillors Smith and Adams, out of a hole. And you also then talked about how you were so pleased with the Liberal Democrats' amendment because it now focuses on the issue of the SPD. Well, in which case, why did you try and shoehorn Brexit and every other single issue, the Spring Statement, Richie Sunak, the Chancellor, you may as well have thrown in the kitchen sink and Boris Johnson while you were at it, into a motion that was clearly about solar energy in the first place? The two reasons for this Labour administration, whatever your rant, Councillor Smith, whatever your want to write a leaflet for the Gedling Ward by-election, the two reasons, as set out eloquently by Councillor Hollingsworth, for not supporting this motion as it is written tonight, not as it was presented by Councillor Barnfather, as it is actually written. It makes no reference to the Cabinet. It makes no reference to exploring options. It makes no reference to modelling. It makes no reference to looking at evidence. That wasn't what you originally intended. What you originally intended was for the Council to create an SPD, because that's what's in the order paper here tonight, in Councillor Adams and Councillor Smith's words. But you're now trying to create a straw man argument because you've realised that you've not done your homework. You didn't speak to the planning officers. You didn't have a conversation with the professionals. You ignored your Tory government's awful track record on renewables and solar energy. You didn't talk tonight about the fact that the cost of living crisis has been created by your own government. If you hadn't shut down the storage facilities that existed in the United Kingdom, that left this country without storage of energy, worst now in Europe, I think we've barely got 5 winter days storage of gas in this country, of a decision that your government took to cut down storage facilities, we wouldn't be in this position. So the two reasons for not supporting this motion tonight is that it commits the council in principle to something that could open us up to legal challenge. And if you don't think I've substantiated it, Councillor Murray, you're a diligent and learned individual. Go and speak to the Chief Planning Officer who we employ and pay. And I'm sure he will share his briefing with you that says that committing the council to an SPD is at variance to the planning guidance. The planning guidance written by the Tory government. But guess what? We shouldn't be surprised that the Tory party is asking an institution to break its own rules, because your Prime Minister's been doing it for the last few months. You absolutely, it beggar belief. It absolutely beggar belief. We won't be supporting it because it opens the council to legal challenge, as Councillor Hollingsworth said, and more importantly, we didn't need a motion tonight. We didn't need grandstanding. We didn't need Brexit shoehorning into a piece of paper. Councillor Hollingsworth and the good office of this council have already introduced low carbon guidance in the planning committee. They're already installing solar panels on to homes in spite of the decision taken by your government to cut feed-in tariffs, and they're doing it in a reasonable and sensible way. They're not prescribing battery power, which could potentially saddle homeowners with extra bills. They're not foisting compulsorily solar panels on every single house, which if you go and just Google, you'll see that there are poor families across the country who have been laden with solar panel levies on their household energy bills by companies that have installed solar panels and then come back for the money later. The diligence, the forward thinking, the progressive, the pro-reducing carbon, the Green Labour administration on this side of the chamber is getting on with the work without posturing, without grandstanding, without, as Councillor Wilkinson said eloquently earlier, just trying to set up cheap shots for literature. We're going to carry on getting on the work. You carry on carping from the sidelines, because I think every single member who lives here in Gedling Borough sees it for exactly what it is.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. Right, I'm going to ask now, Councillor Adams, would you please have a closing comment?
I'd love one. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That's very kind of you. Yeah, well, you know, as always with these things, the research, the detail is always there in the research, and there's a reason why feed-in tariffs don't exist anymore, Michael. Sorry, Councillor Payne. And if you type in Google... Yeah, but do you know where the money comes from for feed-in tariffs, Councillor Payne? Do you know? No, Councillor Prees. It comes from energy providers. They pay feed-in tariffs, and where do you think the energy providers get their money from? Customers. So, as you happily spirit the idea about feed-in tariffs being the absolutely fantastic, the reality is they aren't. They damage people's bills and, in fact, increase the cost of people's bills as a result, by the nature of the fact that that's where the money comes from for feed-in tariffs. So, once again, devil, detail, Google, read it. Second thing I'd like to point out is that what's really sad about this, coming from a single income family as I was growing up, an opportunity to help people, which I keep bringing back here. The other week I was talking about how you can get help with your water, getting a meter, how that helps. Again, real help for people. You've had an opportunity tonight, again, to really help people. And as Councillor Smith correctly put, as he puts regularly, in fact, often, that we get the words and zero action. And that's really disappointing, really disappointing. You also talked about solar panels and batteries costing people extra. And also, Councillor Hollingsworth, I just want to add that your point around how solar panels are not the only option. I agree with you. There are so many options out there. So many options out there. So I can't wait for your SPD that covers all of those other technologies. I'm incredibly excited about seeing it and how you're going to help people in affordable homes who are struggling with rising bills caused by an increase in energy costs. And I find it absolutely incredible that you can't see that for what it is. And purely, you talk about posturing, Councillor Payne, and actually, the posturing is you. You've not voted this because it came through from a Conservative group. You've not voted for this because it was then amended, and guess what? We agree with the amendment from the Liberal Democrats. You purely and simply going to vote against this because it's a Conservative party, a Conservative group that wants to help working families, help people that are poor, and try and bring some sort of relief to the incredible bills that are coming their way with regards to energy. So it's a very sad day for all of you, and I can't wait to put that on a leaflet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. Right, shall we then take a vote?
Madam Mayor, could I call for a recorded vote, please?
Recorded vote. Thank you very much.
Second.
Oh, one seconder.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
avoiding everyone when I speak, Madam Deputy Mayor. Right, for this vote, when I call your name, please state either for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Peter Barnes. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Against.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor Bosworth. For. Councillor Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Clooney.
Against.
Councillor Collis.
Against.
Councillor Creamer.
Against.
Councillor Duncan. For. Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Roxanne Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Feeney. Councillor Fox.
Against.
Councillor Gibbons.
Against.
Councillor Greensmith.
For.
Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Keneally.
Against.
Councillor Ron McCrossan. Councillor Viv McCrossan. Councillor Miller. Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Nyuk. Councillor Paling.
Against.
Councillor Payne. Councillor Martin Smith.
For.
Councillor Sam Smith.
For lower energy bills.
Councillor Wheeler.
Against. Can I have a
Councillor
windfall
Wheeler?
tax, please? Against. Time for a win.
Against. And Councillor Wilkinson.
Against.
Madam Mayor, that's voted down.
Right, thank you very much. That's voted down. We have now still on item 11, motion 2. Can Councillor Adams please propose the motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose this motion, which is about to be distributed to you all now. Oh, there, you've already got it. Thank you for that. Obviously, as you saw, that was all planned. So you've already got the motion. It's before you. The motion in question appears as a result of concerns raised by local residents, concerns around the identity of their home, the place that they call home, the streets that they walk on their way to school, the streets that they walk on when they go to meet friends. And in the research and discussions that we've had, research of which has been circulated to the leader of the council, shows that concern. And as we did in the previous motion, we back our residents and we back their ability to identify, in this case, what their area means to them, what their community means to them, and the community that they want to live in, and the community that they want their children to grow up in. And what's been really clear to us is HMOs are affecting the way they live. And in fact, I moved by Nottingham City Council and some of their areas, as a result of this, has seen positive change. And we would like to see that same change here today. And once again, we have an opportunity as councillors, albeit to pass the decision-making onto Cabinet, to where I'm sure they will consider it, all of the parts of it, and hopefully back that change. And I really hope today that, because this has come from the Conservative group, again, I understand how difficult it is for you to accept things that come from the Conservative group. The ideas that come from us are difficult to accept. But think about the residents that you represent, many of which live in these areas. So if you can't see past the fact, like the previous motion, that this came from, in that case, a Conservative and Liberal Democrat party, that you think about the residents that you represent, the residents that have elected you into the seats, that have the concerns about the future of their area. And let's hope, I really hope you back this, and we can really see the change that's needed in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sam Smith, would you like to second, first of all? Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs Deputy Mayor. I formally second the motion as altered, and in doing so I would like to bring to the attention of this chamber some facts and figures relating to HMOs in Netherfield and the impact they are having on the community that this council has worked hard to improve. Mrs Deputy Mayor, the council is aware of 7 licences having been or in the process.
Could I have some clarity, please? I thought Councillor Smith said he seconded and reserved the right to speak, and yet he's speaking.
Yeah, he did.
No.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Reserve the right to speak.
I'll start again, but I did not say that.
Get it on.
No, watch it back when you get home. I did not say reserve the right to speak.
Formally second it.
I'm going to start again. I seconded it. I did not reserve the right to speak. I'll continue, as is permitted. Paul.
No, it doesn't. You can talk straight away. Read up. Do your research.
I'm going to start again. Sorry, Paul,
Right.
you'll have to listen to me.
Just a minute. If you speak now...
Yeah, I know. I can't speak at the end. I know. I've been in this chamber for 2 years. I know the rules. Paul Wilkinson doesn't. I'm not bringing that into account.
Perhaps read up what formally seconding a motion means then.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to carry on.
Just carry on.
What do you
Right.
want to do?
Carry on.
Carry on, we can't speak later.
I would say not just second it, and then we'll ask people to speak.
No, that's not how it works.
Can the monitoring officer advise, please?
Okay, then. Finish off what you've got to say. Right.
Thank you, Mrs Deputy Mayor. I second the motion as altered, and in doing so I'd like to bring to the attention of this council some facts and figures relating to HMOs in Netherfield and the impact they are having on the community that this council has worked hard to improve. Mrs Deputy Mayor, the council is aware of 7 licences having been or in the process of being issued to HMO landlords within the Netherfield area. This council is also aware of 2 planning applications for HMOs of more than 6 bedrooms that have been granted in Netherfield. One is on Ashwell Street and one is on Victoria Road. However, this council, Mrs Deputy Mayor, is unaware of how many other residential properties in Netherfield have been or are being converted from Class C3 family home into a Class C4 HMO of 6 or less. Because, as things stand, Mrs Deputy Mayor, planning permission is not required for this change, so there is no requirement for this council to register the change of use, and sadly, we do not. So, Mrs Deputy Mayor, the quantity of HMOs in Netherfield is basically unknown. But thanks to surveys carried out by Councillor Michael Adams as the area's county councillor and Tom Randall MP, the impact that HMOs are having on the community of Netherfield is known. 111 residents have been surveyed so far, And of those, 75% are noticing an increase in HMOs throughout Netherfield. 69% of them say HMOs are adding to the lack of on-street parking. And why wouldn't they? Because as a family home, which will usually have 1 or 2 cars, now a HMO is attracting up to 6. 34% of the residents surveyed worry about not knowing their neighbours, created by the short-term tenancy of HMO occupiers. 16% stated that an increase of HMOs in Netherfield is affecting the community feel, removing affordable family homes off the property market and increasing crime and fly tipping on the front of gardens. Only 10% of the 111 Netherfield residents surveyed said that they were unaffected by the increase in HMOs in Netherfield. Now, everyone deserves somewhere to live and to call home, Mrs. Deputy Mayor, and Gedling Borough, is a wonderful place to do just that. Our borough offers a range of residential accommodation to suit everyone's needs, but conversion of existing housing stock and development must not be at the detriment of our communities and existing residents that we all serve. 93% of the 111 Netherfield residents surveyed would like to see Gedling Borough Council introduce an Article 4 direction in Netherfield. 93%. The residents of Netherfield have now made it clear that an increase of HMOs is having a detrimental effect on their lives and the community that they live in. They have also stated loud and clear that they would like this council to introduce an Article 4 direction in Netherfield so that they have a say on any future conversions or development, and that this council's planning committee is enabled to debate each application. This is something that is not currently happening here in Gedling Borough, but it is what this motion can deliver. Tonight, we can all vote to give Netherfield residents back control of their communities by endorsing an Article 4 direction that Cabinet can or cannot confirm and bring into action. And I encourage us all to do just that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Thank you for your view. I've got plenty wishing to speak. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. As once again we've been presented with a different motion to what is in the order paper, again I'd like to propose a short adjournment for us to discuss it.
We need a seconder then for adjournment. Oh, there's plenty of seconders, right. A vote, yeah. Everybody? Yeah, all in agreement, mostly? Anybody against? Right. Adjournment, 10 minutes, yeah? Are we all ready? Would anybody like to speak? Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment. I know it's difficult, but since the original motion was only tabled in the middle of the meeting, it's hard. I haven't been able to type it out or anything. If I try and make sense of my scribbles. So we're happy until the penultimate paragraph. So the penultimate paragraph, where it says the council resolves to support, delete the words to support and put refers, delete the word to support in and substitute refers the, and then delete the after principle and substitute it with of. Delete everything after and resolves the matter to be referred to Mayor's Cabinet and substitute to Cabinet. So that paragraph would read, this council resolves to refer the principle of making of an Article 4 direction to remove permitted development rights for change of use from use class C3 dwelling house to use class 4 housing multiple occupation, covering the Netherfield area to Cabinet. Delete the last paragraph and substitute, this council calls upon the government to reverse the legislation it introduced in September 2010 that removed a requirement for planning permission for HMOs and resolves to write to local members of parliament accordingly.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yeah, we didn't write.
Read that again, please. Can you read it again?
Right, can you read it again then,
I'll read the
Yeah?
I'll read the whole of the last two paragraphs as there would be amendments.
Are you all listening?
So it would read, this council resolves to refer the principle of making of an Article 4 direction to remove permitted development rights for change of use from use class C3 dwelling house to use class C4 housing multiple occupation, covering the Netherfield area to Cabinet. The last paragraph would then read, this council calls upon the government to reverse the legislation it introduced in September 2010 that removed a requirement for planning permission for HMOs and resolves to write to local members of parliament accordingly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ellis. Anybody else? Councillor Payne.
Needs to be seconded first.
Second the amendment.
Sorry.
Second the amendment.
Amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We'd like a copy of that in writing, as is a requirement, please, because obviously there are numerous differences there. But I would just have to say at this point in time, that is a direct contradiction to the spirit of the original motion, and I'm amazed that the monitoring officer would consider that that is an acceptable amendment.
In addition to that, when we receive it in writing, can we adjourn as well, please?
I'll second the adjournment.
Seconded. So we're going to get a copy. Right. Second it.
We're going to get a copy, circulate it and then adjourn.
Madam Mayor, can we, once Emma has finished typing it, can we not put it on the screen? Then everyone will have a clear sight of it.
How can we see that in the other room?
We can't adjourn then, can we?
Don't you? Yeah, they want... Laptop's up there.
Brilliant. We'll be really
Can we just say the adjournment starts now, 10 minutes, please? Is everybody back? Right, I think everybody's back, are we? So, right. I think we might be on track. Anybody now wishing to speak on the amendment, please? Councillor Ellis, David Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. I've already apologised that it was the way it was scribbled, but that was the nature of the way we had the original motion. The amendment, the revised motion that the Conservative group submitted has moved on from the motion that was in the papers, and this amendment is just to try and tie it a bit more tightly, saying that there is an issue, then we want to have a proper look at it, and the appropriate mechanism for that is through an appropriate report from officers to Cabinet. That's what we're seeking to do with that amendment to the penultimate paragraph. And if you go back in time, there were 6 months when HMOs were regulated under planning provision, and that was between April 2010 and September 2010. The previous Labour government had an extensive consultation in the 2 years prior to that, and produced an amendment to the planning legislation, which was introduced, came into effect in April 2010, and one of the first acts of the Conservative and Lib Dem coalition was to abolish it. And Article 4 was a sort of a bit of a sop towards that, and we're just thinking that doesn't go far enough, which obviously the Conservative group thinks it links likewise. Deleting the issue about not requiring a letter being sent to the government or local members of Parliament, because the local member of Parliament wrote to the leader this evening, and it's only courteous to offer him a reply. So I think, if the Conservative group believe there's an issue, then it's appropriate to take it through the Council's appropriate mechanism and move it forward. That's all we're seeking to do with the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ellis. Anyone else wishing to speak, please, before Councillor Adams gives his final comments? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, rather. I would hope we can do this. I would have liked to have seen this, so collectively we could have put something together to government, because this decision that was made by Chaps, or I can't quite pronounce his name, is it Chaps or Grant Chaps? So this decision was made in 2010, so in effect it's your government that's made the rules that's causing the problem. We can get over that, but what I see, and I've got more spies in Netherfield than Putin's got in Ukraine, they're telling me there is only one at the moment which is partially full. That's 45 Ashford Street. That is partially full. We've had some problems with it, which I reported, which was some fly tipping, mixed tipping in bins, etc., which was being dealt with. We can deal with that under licensing. I asked Mike Avery, as our planning expert, I'm not the planning expert, and I don't think there's anybody else in this room that's as cute as he is on it, but for some guidance. And he points out quite rightly, Madam Deputy Mayor, that this legislation was brought in, and it quite clearly, as you stated, City, Broxtowe. That was to control a burgeoning problem with students. This now, they're looking at upwardly mobile or whatever, somebody wants a roof over their head. I don't deny that, but you've also got to look at what people want around them. And I didn't take kindly to Sam, I think you mentioned about crime. Crime is worse in a borough that's close to us, in Rushcliffe, than it is in Netherfield. And if you sort of start putting those things out, these problems are going to get worse, because people then you get the vigilante type thing. We don't want this, we don't want that. And there are 7 mentioned. There's another one that's been done
which is now up for sale, I am told. I am informed last night that one is up for sale, the one that they don't want to do it, for £400,000 on Meadow Road. There is another one that the person where they were after one on Chandos Street that they do not, they're not wishing to sell to these people. There is a problem there, but I think we can do it. And we can do it if government can help, and we can join together and get that legislation. At the moment, I was very much like you. I wanted Article 4, get it in there, it'll sort it. Well, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it won't sort it, because we can lay ourselves, similar to the earlier motion, and we can be very, very vulnerable to costs. And they could be significant. To a small council, that is not good. So there is a way through it. This is not saying no, but this is putting it in a different way. Let's let's get some more information. Let's work with our MP. And to be fair to Tom, he's sent the thing, but he sent it was about 5 o'clock tonight. And I just haven't had time to look at it or digest it or talk to some of the professionals we've got, officers. So when we've looked at that, and I can include, and Mike, I'll gladly include you with it, so that we can come to a consensus that says, right, we're going to deal with this. Because if it won't just stop there, it can go across the borough. There's no doubt in that. And there are areas, and we've brought licensing in Netherfield. I'd like to bring it in another area because it starts to control some of the poorer landlords. Not all landlords are like that, but some are, and we've got that licensing in. So that's a plus sign of it. But we have to do it together, and it has to be done so that it actually stands up to scrutiny. Because if it is challenged by one of these companies, similar to the one before, we haven't got Wimpy's lawyers. We've got Fran running around and one or two other people, and that's no detriment to Fran. There's a lot of work here, and there'll be a lot of people wanting to push through. I think some people have seen the resistance. Some people have seen, the things that are being said. But I do appeal to you not to whip it up too much. Let's try and resolve it. Let's get it sorted and get something. And that's working with government, with our local MPs, to try and stop this. Just pointing out, Madam Deputy Mayor, if we talk about HMOs, in the Mapley area where I used to live, in Moore Road, Kent Road, Hayward Road, and all around there, we've got several, and they're called halfway houses. We've got some, I think we've got one or two, Mapley Orchard, we've got one or two places that are for people with learning difficulties who have got some freedom of, learning to live independent, and that's the word I'm after. And they work, but in this case, it's being splattered. All of these coming in, they're all going to be criminals. I spoke to someone last night who was very vehement about the Ashwell Street one and said it has calmed down. It is not full. Excuse me. It is not full, and we are monitoring it, and I think that's the way we've got to deal with it. Keep cool heads. Let's try and get the legislation changed, and let's put some suggestions, and that's taking everybody, it's taking all the groups, the suggestions, and let's put them forward through our MPs back to Parliament and say there's something wrong here, and it is causing concern, and it is affecting the quality of people's lives. Thank you.
Too right. Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Anyone else? Councillor Elwood. This is on the amendment, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Happy to support the amendment. As far as we can tell, it doesn't change it. The spirit of the original motion. The one thing that, again, I wouldn't claim to be a planning expert, but one thing that does spring to mind is that. The main issue we seem to be finding when we have the HMOs come to planning committee is the parking issue. Now, my understanding is that the HMOs, certainly the smaller ones, the ones with six houses, 6 occupants, don't fall within the SPD for parking, which I think is just being finalised now. The new SPD for parking is just going to cabinet, I think, if it hasn't gone through already. So, in a sense, that probably needs looking at again as well to some extent. Maybe if we bring in the smaller HMOs with the 6 or less occupants, then maybe that would be the time also to look at the parking policy with regard to those properties, because to my mind it's more the parking issue than the issues of the supposed bad folks who are moving into the HMOs, because in general the people who are moving in are, you know, professional people who are just renting the properties. But thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elwood. Anyone else? Councillor Martin Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Councillor Clark touched on this earlier, that with the restrictions of HMOs within the city boundary, it's no surprise that landlords are looking towards Gedling Borough and Netherfield in particular. Whilst I'm very fortunate to live in the lovely village of Ravenshead, councillors should know that my family roots are actually in Netherfield. My grandparents were long-time residents of a street that Councillor Clark will probably know very well, Deeble Street. And it's for that reason I'm very fully supportive of Netherfield residents who have indicated in the survey that Councillor Smith alluded to that they strongly oppose HMOs within Netherfield.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin Smith. Anyone else? No? Right. So, Councillor Adams, any comments, final comments? On the amendment, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to get water, my throat's a bit dry.
You're not going to be half an hour, are you?
3/4. No chance of that, 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just I thank Councillor Clark for the one resident that he spoke to. We spoke to 111 who feel otherwise. I'm disappointed again to sit here and you know, government have given certain powers to local councils in order to do certain things. And the problem with what we keep doing here week after week is that we keep batting it off. It's as if it's somebody else's problem. We defer it as if oh, grow up. It's nothing to do with this government, Michael, that this situation is being battered off again. The government don't do that, you're doing it. You're writing another one of your fantastic letters that achieve absolutely nothing. The issue here needs to be, Madam Mayor, that this is dealt with here. It should be dealt with here. There's a direct line that says that in our own motion that's now been cut out in the amendment, that says the measure is in the council's remit and does not require any letter being sent to government or to our local members of parliament to enact. It's crystal clear. This motion makes a complete mockery of that point. This amendment makes a complete mockery of that point and actually changes the direction to once again send a letter, which is, you know, incredibly disappointing, and will be disappointing for the residents of Netherfield who we've spoke to. We spent a long time talking to some very, I must say, engaged residents. I mean, I think it shows what a community Netherfield is, the level of engagement that they have and how they want their area to be a certain way, and they believe in that. And, you know, I'm incredibly proud to represent them in another place. And the fact that they do have this view about their area, their community, is a positive thing. And they call on their local representatives, who they elect in elections, and by the way, there's one, as we well know, next year, that they have an opportunity to elect people that enact the things that they want happening and changing in their communities. That's what they put us here for. That's our job. We have it in our power to refer this to Cabinet, let Cabinet make a decision and enact that change. However, once again, it's long grass time from the administration. Let's kick it as far in the long grass as it can. Let's remove the date. Let's take the date out, and then we can do it, well, one day, we've got the time, you know, we'll think about it. Brilliant. Another thing disappears into the ether. You know, it's just so disappointing that you choose words again instead of action. I don't get it. Why do you want to run a council if you're not prepared to run it? Instead, you want to give the government an opportunity to run it on your behalf. You know, we're talking about the way that the councils are changing and that we want more powers from central government, and yet you want to give them back at the first opportunity. Why the weak leadership? Where does that come from? Where is that weakness? So, you can probably gather we will not be supporting this amendment, this change of action, this disappointing, disappointment, and in fact, we are in full support of our motion to bring the HMO Article 4 direction forward through the correct channels that the government has given the powers of this council to do. Instead, alas, we are forced to write another letter.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyle.
Madam Deputy Mayor, just a point of information.
Right.
Yeah, point of information. It was mentioned I'd spoken to one person. That's not true.
No, I know.
I've represented this area for 30 years. I know virtually everybody on each street. I hold, along with Councillor Barbara Miller at the back of me here, a regular surgery. I'm down there on a regular basis, and I'm telling you that nobody has been to that surgery and said anything about HMOs apart from one person who came about a year ago when they were concerned about Ashwell Street. Now, if there were more, I'd tell you. But don't insinuate I've only spoken or whatever you put out. You've only spoken to one person.
Correct.
There are dozens. I've held that seat. I took it from the Tories, and I intend hanging on to it as well. Not hanging on to it. I'm going to improve like we did in Arnold. But wrong information there. Yeah. We're there and have been right the way through COVID and all the rest of the things, have done all these for the people in Netherfield. So, no, it wasn't one person. It's hundreds down there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Can we take now a vote on the amendment, please? So, are we having a... Right, so can I just have a show of hands for all in favour? You want a recorded vote?
Seconder.
Seconder? Councillor Hollingsworth. There we go again.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So for this vote, when I call your name, please state either for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
Abstain.
Councillor Peter Barnes. Madam Deputy Mayor.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
Abstain.
Councillor Bosworth.
She's gone.
Oh, she's gone. Okay. Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Clooney.
For.
Councillor Collis.
For.
Councillor Creamer.
For.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Roxanne Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Feeney. Councillor Fox.
For.
Councillor Gibbons.
For the residents.
Councillor Greensmith.
Abstain.
Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Ron McCrossan. Councillor Viv McCrossan. Councillor Miller. Councillor Murray.
Abstain.
Councillor Nayuk.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Martin Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Sam Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
That's carried, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. That's carried.
Carried.
The amendments.
This is.
We are returning to the substantive.
This becomes a substantive motion.
Right, so do you want any comments? Yes. Any comments? Councillor Ollinsworth, please.
Thank you, Madam
Hallelujah.
Mayor. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Smith complains that neither the residents nor the council have a right to speak on certain HMOs that are maybe developed in Netherfield, and we've already heard why that is, and that's because a Conservative government, Conservative-led coalition government, removed that right from residents and the council in 2010. Do I think that's right? No, I don't. But that's the situation we've got. So the Article 4 directives do not prevent HMOs being developed. It means that the application for planning permission must be made prior to any development taking place. Now, the National Planning Policy Framework advises that Article 4 directions should be limited to situations where an Article 4 direction is necessary to protect local amenity or the well-being of an area. In all cases, it must be based on robust evidence and be applied to the smallest geographical area possible. This advice is reaffirmed in the planning practice guidance at paragraph 038. Local planning authorities can therefore only make an Article 4 direction where it can both justify its purpose and extent. The local planning authority should clearly identify the potential harm the direction is intended to address, and the Secretary of State has the power to cancel any direction. The bit I've got we'll take out. The legal requirement for a direction is that the local planning authority considers it expedient that the development should not be carried out unless permission is granted. Any Article 4 direction must be evidence-based to comply with requirements and applied in a measure and untargeted ways. Now, in relation to Netherfield, over the past 5 years, there have been 3 determined planning permissions in Netherfield to change use of a property from a dwelling to an HMO, proposing the occupation of property by more than 6 unrelated people sharing basic amenities. One was refused planning permission against officer advice, and a revised scheme was subsequently implemented under permitted development rights, so it went ahead with fewer people. Another application for 7-bedroom HMO was refused against planning officer advice, and a subsequent appeal to the planning inspector was allowed and permission was granted. The point being that Article 4 does not necessarily stop houses of multiple occupation, and it can go to an inspector can grant an appeal, and it goes ahead. A further application was granted permission following consultation with the planning delegation panel. The 3 determined planning applications were each considered in light of the relevant policies contained in the MPPF, the Greater Nottingham Aligned Course Strategy, the local planning document, and the parking provision for residential developments. The principle of the proposed use, impact upon residential amenity, highway safety, flood risk, and other issues were fully considered by officers in each report, and no conflict was found with any of the council's adopted planning policies or national policies. In relation to highway safety, advice was sought from the Highways Authority prior to determination, and no objections were received. There is no evidenced highway safety risk that would indicate the existing or proposed HMOs in Netherfield Ward would result in undue highway safety issues. Dwellings in this locality are situated in close proximity to the shopping area, and the wider area is well served by public transport. The analysis of planning applications over the past 5 years indicates that HMOs requiring planning permission are in full conformity with national and local planning policies, and no harm has been identified. Madam Mayor, there are 2,915 residential properties within the ward of Netherfield, and evidence indicates that there are 7 confirmed HMOs providing accommodation for 5 or more unrelated individuals. There is a further property which could deliver an HMO, subject to planning and licensing approval. Currently, therefore, there is 0.24% of the housing stock in Netherfield comprised of HMOs, accommodating 5 or more unrelated individuals, and this could rise to 0.27%. The existing HMOs appear to be distributed across the ward, and at the current time, there does not appear to be an overconcentration in one particular locality. I think it was it Councillor Murray? Oh, I can't remember who raised the issue that because there was an Article 4 in the city, landlords were looking to Netherfield. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that is so. And if that was the case, why are rooms empty and why are HMOs being sold off or plans to develop them abandoned? The two cannot go together. The government has given powers, as I've said, for Article 4, but only if the evidence exists. Councillor Adams cites the City and Broxtowe councils who have introduced Article 4 directions, but they are in no way comparable to Netherfield. Both have large student populations, given their proximity to both universities. Areas of the city were almost exclusively student houses, which had a clear and obvious effect on the local amenity and well-being of the areas. In Beeston, there were 229 licensed HMOs and an area where a whole street was 100% occupied student homes. And that's because Beeston is a short walk or a tram ride from the main university campus. In both cases, robust evidence justified the introduction of an Article 4 direction. Councillor Adam raises the increased traffic and congested streets, which I've already addressed in the advice we've had from the Highways Agency.
Are you nearly near the end?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
I'll cut to the end because I was going to say, Madam Mayor, that in my original notes, I had said that we will continue to monitor the situation in Netherfield Ward and any future proposals for HMOs. Should councillors, the MP for Gedling or the community bring evidence that the local amenity or well-being of the area is being harmed, we will, of course, revisit the Article 4 option. Now, although it's a small sample, Councillor Smith seems to be saying that there is evidence. 111 seems to be around 2.4% of the population of Netherfield, but I would happy to be corrected if that's not the case. If there is evidence, we are happy to look at it, and that's why we have amended the original motion to say that we will take it to Cabinet and we'll have a look what evidence there is. The reason it's not going to May is because we actually want the time to collect the evidence, have a look at it, and get a proper report to Cabinet. Otherwise, we'll be accused of just going through the motions and not addressing the issue properly. So I think, in fairness, you should let us have the time to do it. Bring us the evidence, we'll have a look and see if it warrants an Article 4 direction. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Councillor Hollingsworth, for your very detailed information. Anybody else? No? You all give up?
Councillor Adams to close.
Councillor Adams, would you like to comment? Close. Right. So, are we having a vote then? Yeah?
Did you say no?
Did you want to say it? No, you didn't want to say anything else, did you?
Vote then.
Councillor Ellis.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I wasn't quite sure what was happening with whether the Conservatives got to sum up since they abstained on the amendment. It seems a very strange state of affairs. I'm not really sure there's much I can say to follow what Councillor Hollingsworth has said, other than to say, just to reiterate one or 2 points. I suspect the local Conservatives have misled the local population, which is not atypical, of course, and led them to believe that an Article 4 direction will stop HMOs, which we know it won't. It gives a little bit more control than not having one. But as Councillor Holdsworth said, it's evidence-based, as all of planning is, and we need to take a careful look at the evidence. And I think the amended motion takes us along that line. If people in Netherfield are concerned there's an issue, we will look seriously at it and take appropriate action as we have been doing. The Conservative group may want action rather than words, but sometimes you have to have the thinking behind it to make sure that the action is legal and effective. And I'm quite happy to support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ellis. Right, can we take the vote then?
We have a recorded vote, please, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Recorded vote. Seconded? Right, it's recorded. Well, it will be.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. For this vote, when I call your name, please state either for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
Abstain.
Councillor Peter Barnes. Madam Deputy Mayor.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
Abstain.
Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Clooney.
For.
Councillor Collis.
For.
Councillor Creamer.
For.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Roxanne Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Feeney. Councillor Fox.
For.
Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Greensmith.
Abstain.
Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Ron McCrossan. Councillor Viv McCrossan. Councillor Miller. Councillor Murray. Councillor Naik.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Martin Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Sam Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
That's carried, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you very much. I want to say sorry you've had a late meeting, and especially to our staff. I'm very sorry it's late. And I just want to say, just remember, in this world where you can be anything, please be kind. Can we not try to be a little kinder to one another? Because we've all got a job as councillors. I mean, you all love what you're doing, so please, can we try and get on a little nicer? Thank you very much. Safe journey home, and thank you for your attendance.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, please be upstanding for the worshipful, the Deputy Mayor of Gedling.